Mookie Betts isn't retiring soon, but when he does, it's probably going to be as a Dodger. The Chargers will soon interview a seventh potential offensive coordinator, and Alijah Arena appears ready for his USC debut. Good morning. I'm James, and this is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is January 20th, 2026. Welcome back to Ice Station Bravo out in Michigan. We added a new subscriber to the Angeleno Familia yesterday. Thank you. We'll do our best to keep you informed. And by the way, later in this episode, we're going to dive a little bit into UCLA versus the Rose Bowl and Pasadena, the legal case. Stay tuned. You might find it interesting. If you like being in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop an update. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. By all means, comment. Before we go through the news and notes, a quick look at the scoreboard. Clippers 110, Washington 106. James Harden scored 36 points. The Clippers are on a 4-game winning streak. Meanwhile, today, the Lakers are at Denver at 7. The Clippers are playing again today at Chicago at 5. Fourth-ranked Purdue is at UCLA at 7 o'clock. And the New York Rangers are at the Kings at 7. Jonathan Quick is very likely going to make his last start in LA tonight. With that out of the way, what do you say we get to the news? Barring a trade, Mookie Betts intends to retire as a Dodger, and frankly, this makes me extremely happy. Been a Dodger fan ever since the Carter administration. For whatever reason, I gravitated to Davey Lopes as my favorite Dodger. And in 50 years of watching this team, where do you rank Mookie Betts? For me, he's somewhere outside of the top 5, where you'd have like Kirk Gibson, Clayton Kershaw, Fernando Valenzuela, and then you start listing other names like, oh, I forgot about Mike Piazza, Oral Hershiser, Don Sutton. You're probably running through names I haven't mentioned. Eric Gagne. Sean Green was my son's favorite player. The reason I'm saying this is because Betts went on a podcast I don't listen to and said in 2032, when his contract ends, quote, I'll be 40. My little girl will be 14. My son will be 10. My parents were always there, and I want to do that same thing for my kids, unquote. Simple as that. Because I don't necessarily think with his salary, he's going to be anybody somebody would want to trade for at age 37, 38, etc. Good for him. Because when Andrew Friedman talked about ushering in a golden age of Dodger baseball, that only became reality when he sent Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong to Boston to land Mookie Betts. And our only cost is that Verdugo, to this day, gives us the stink face. Betts has 3 rings with LA. And even though last year was an offensive struggle, he still played a pivotal role in earning that 3rd title by playing elite defense at shortstop. So yeah, he started to come into his own with Boston. I don't deny that. But he's going to go down as a Dodger, one of the greatest Dodgers. And by the way, like I said, when he retires, he's probably going to the Hall of Fame as one. Nobody's going to be able to argue after all those years and probably a couple of more rings that Betts should retire with with his plaque in Red Sox gear. And that also makes me happy because I hope Boston fans suffer accordingly. That racist city for abandoning him in his physical prime. If you're a Dodger fan, let me know what you think about that development. The Chargers plan to interview a former Rams assistant about the vacant offensive coordinator gig. Patriots passing game coordinator Thomas Brown, who used to be a coach with the Rams. He also interviewed for Arizona's head coaching gig. He's a former NFL running back. He served as an offensive coordinator for Atlanta and Chicago. He was also the interim coach briefly for the Bears in 2024. Now, having said that, there's still a hiccup for him to get a shot with the Bolts. He can't interview until after the AFC Championship game on Sunday. You can say this much about Brown's candidacy. He damn sure got an eyeful of what the Chargers lack. He was on the sidelines when the Bolts scored just 3 points a couple of weeks ago. The Bolts, meanwhile, did have punch and pie with Arthur Smith, who has 17 years of coaching experience. He was most recently the offensive coordinator at Pittsburgh. Smith is also on Arizona and Tennessee's radar as a head coach. So, if you're keeping score, the Chargers have interviewed 6 potential offensive coordinators, and Brown would be number 7. So you put all that into the hopper if you're a Chargers fan. Here's what makes me wonder. So often you hear about how an offensive coordinator will fit in with the quarterback, right? But is that really a priority when you think of the Chargers? Seriously, Justin Herbert's already had 5, and he has functioned well despite all of that churn. Is it possible, I'm speculating here, is it possible that the Bolts would be better served by adding an offensive coordinator who goes against the grain? In other words, a guy who comes in, looks at Justin Herbert and says, listen, you know what you're doing. I'm just going to hand you my playbook, and I know you will commit it to memory. You have that level of intellect. But my first priority is your line, because Mekhi Becton didn't fit in well with Greg Roman. And maybe, just maybe, I could get some more out of Zion Johnson. That's what I would think if I were the Bolts, for what I would want in an OC. Because if you believe the analytics nerds, Johnson was half a guard. In other words, he was terrific in run blocking, terrible at pass blocking. If the new offensive coordinator can get an offensive line coach who can reach Johnson and bring better pass protection out of him, then all you have to worry about is the center. You know what you have at the tackles. Possibly getting better communication with the guards, and then you're not blowing all your free agent money to replace almost half your offensive line. It's just a thought. If you're a Charger fan, let me know what you think. 5-star recruit Alijah Arena is probable to make his college debut for USC basketball against Northwestern. So say at the LA Times. The son of NBA sharpshooter Gilbert Arenas should have already gotten his feet wet by now if it were not for 2 reasons. 1, inability to keep a Tesla from bursting into flame. And 2, putting his knee meniscus in a shredder. I don't know how you do that, but he managed it. So kudos, dude. Arenas was the 10th ranked prospect going into this season as a freshman. That would be according to 24/7 Sports. He's also the all-time leader in points in LA City section history. And we've already talked about how USC is lacking at guard thanks to injury. The idea of getting a potential elite scorer, yeah, that would kind of be what the doctor ordered, wouldn't you say? And I realize I just said that about a guy who spent I don't know how many months in the hospital in this last year. UCLA football added yet another lineman from the transfer portal. Offensive lineman Jordan Davis is formerly of South Alabama. South Alabama. As if Alabama wasn't deep south enough, right? Sitting there with your offensive line and everybody up in the stands is either named Clem or Cooter or Betty Sue. And they're all wearing overalls. Anyway, welcome to civilization, Jordan. Now, Scribe speculated that the dude will be the Bruins' left tackle, but then he offered no particular proof other than to say he weighs more than 300 pounds. So I'm not so sure this guy's starting, at least not yet. The LA Times consulted 3 legal scholars about whether UCLA football will be forced to stay at the Rose Bowl this fall, as opposed to potentially playing at SoFi Stadium. I would advise everybody to look at that article with skepticism. Why? Well, I spoke with a friend of mine who's a lawyer, because when I was a scribe, I too would interview experts. But are they really experts? Should we buy what they're selling? And from what my friend told me, he didn't say, no, don't trust them. But I'm thinking no. It doesn't mean that these scholars are stupid. It means a bunch of different things. It means, for example, the standard for legal scholar does not qualify you as an expert. Legal scholar is not precisely defined. If you have something published in a law review magazine, you can now say you're a legal scholar. That's it. Secondly, the sources in the LA Times are academics, which means maybe they argue cases in court, maybe not. But it would stand to reason that if you're always in court, you would know from in-game experience, from being on the front lines of these legal arguments, you would know whether you have a winning case. Also, this is a civil case, which means it's not going to have the courtroom drama that you would get in your average Matlock episode. These aren't going to be about hearings. It's basically the lawyers filing briefs back and forth until the judge is like, screw it, I need a beer. And here's a key. The overwhelming majority of these cases never go to a trial. So, what I could do for you is I could repeat all my prior opinions about UCLA potentially leaving the Rose Bowl. But what does this tell us from the article, plus what my friend was telling me? Either the Bruins cut a fat check to break the contract with the Rose Bowl, or they stay. Which is what I've been telling you guys since the suit against UCLA was filed in the first place. Now, you might ask why the Times didn't go to the lawyers representing UCLA, the lawyers representing Pasadena, or the Rose Bowl. Honestly, I'm sure they did. But those lawyers aren't going to say something that tips their hand in court or tips their hand in a potential filing that the opposing side could counter-argue. So yeah, much ado, we're still at the same place. UCLA can cut the fat check, which they probably want to do anyway. Or if they don't, they could stay. You might want to start looking at the seating chart for SoFi. I haven't cared about all-star games in a long time. When I was a kid, I used to run home on July afternoons just so I could watch baseball's all-star game. And I don't care about all-star games. I don't really care that much about MVP awards because LA is a city of championships. So, yesterday, I was told LeBron James did not get voted as an all-star game starter. And okay, it's impressive that he started 21 all-star games. But I can't tell you if I've ever watched any of those 21 all-star games. So I'm letting you know because it's news. But it's not earth-shattering. Luka Doncic was the leading vote getter, if it matters. And by the way, speaking of votes, let it be known that the players have a sense of humor. 2 NBA players voted for Bronny James to start in the All-Star game. Well done. I appreciate the next level troll. By the way, how do we know it's a joke, aside from the obvious? Because 4 players voted for a guy named Isaac Jones, who has scored 5 points this year. Who he play for? I didn't even bother to look it up. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Talk to me, for example, about where you would rank Mookie Betts in terms of all-time Los Angeles Dodgers. For that matter, have any of the potential Charger offensive coordinators impressed you? And if you enjoyed this update, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James, and we'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.